Hi, everyone, and welcome to the DudaFlex Webinar. My name is Amir Glatt. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Duda, and I'm very excited to start this webinar to show you all the great things that DudaFlex can do. Together with me is Maayan Mor. Hi, Maayan.
Hi, Amir.
Maayan is one of our product managers and the leader for the DudaFlex product. And also on the dev side, we have Adiel Goren. Hi, Adiel.
Hi, Amir. Hey, everyone.
How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. So Adiel will cover all the dev side and like tips and tricks on how to use DudaFlex. So we have a very packed agenda for you today. We start by telling you a little bit about why we build DudaFlex and Duda's vision for it. Then Maayan will show us some inspirations, new design possibilities that can be done with DudaFlex. We'll switch over to Adiel to learn best practices about using the system and how things are working. Then we talk a little bit about plans for the future, and we'll wrap up with questions and answers that you guys can ask us. So let's get started.
Yes, Amir, maybe we'll start at the beginning and you can share why did we build DudaFlex?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So, every time that we asked you, our customers, about why you like Duda and what's the best value of Duda for you, the first answer was always that it's very easy or very fast to build great sites on the platform. But where we felt that, we are falling short based on feedback is on creating responsive pixel perfect websites. If you have your own design and you want it to look exactly like that, sometimes it was difficult to do with Duda. So we said, okay, we want to extend Duda to be able to build pixel perfect websites fast as before. Now, as you know, the Duda system today is based on rows and columns. And I think around maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we also added inner rows, which added some flexibility. But still, with just rows and columns, we couldn't do many things. We couldn't do things like any number of columns in a row, 6 columns or 7 columns. We couldn't have overlapping elements on top of each other. We couldn't have alignment to bottom or to the right. We couldn't easily change the layout between desktop and tablet and mobile view and so on. So we decided to build from the ground up the layouting system of Duda with DudaFlex. We wanted to bring the best technologies to you. When I'm saying best technologies, I mean both the technologies that will allow you to use it. We added things like CSS grids, Flexbox, and all the latest thing in web design. And on the on our side, we rebuilt the entire inline editing capabilities from scratch. That we added tons of unit tests to make sure there are no regressions. We added latest technologies that allows us to do snapping and very accurate resizing and all of that. And basically, we built something that we think that we can build for the future for you guys. Another thing sorry, Maayan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, please.
Saying that it also was important for us to integrate it right into the same editor that you're using, so we can use DudaFlex on existing sites and on new sites in parallel.
That's really amazing. And but what about the current Duda editor?
So the current Duda editor is really not going anywhere. It's here to stay. We're going to continue to support it. We're going to continue to add features to it. There are almost million live websites that you built on the platform, and they're not going anywhere. We're also going to respect all the templates that you have on top of it. But DudaFlex is something that we're going to invest more and more. And our vision is to be able to create Flex-only websites that you start with a Flex template, and this is all you have. So this will live side by side.
Okay, and what about newbies who find DudaFlex a bit difficult to use right now?
So one, we understand that there is some learning curve to do the flex. That's the reason that we are investing a lot in education materials and things like this webinar and so on. But in parallel, we'll work to make do the flex easier to use for newcomers. We'll also have in this webinar some, I think, practical tricks to how to start with do the flex.
Great.
Cool, Maayan. So now it's my time to ask you some questions.
Yeah, let me just go to the Duda editor. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So Maayan, so can you show us some inspiration, stuff that can be done with DudaFlex that maybe were a little bit more difficult to use with the standard editor?
Yes, of course. We have, of course, all the Duda templates and sections that you can start from. For example, we have this template. It's a creative agency template. And here you can see there is this a very sleek hero with overlapping elements. Let's scroll down and see the template. So you can see here that we have this custom list of all the projects of this creative agency template that are made of a mix of videos and images together. And each title is in some offset from the cards. And there is a different alignment between those cards. And that different alignment is something that was it's very easy to do with DudaFlex. Here we see this again, and this editorial style is something that is it's like a trend, but it's very stable in the industry. It's very common, and with DudaFlex you can. It can be done very easily. So let's go to the flex mode and see how it was made. So first, you can see that it was made. This page was made of a few different flex sections. So let's see the first. Let's see this one. So in order to create this card. It was made of a container. That container was holding a text block. And inside that container, we have a flex box with an image and 2 text blocks and a button. Then this container was duplicated in order to create this container, this card. And of course, there was a transition added to it of scroll animation with different threshold between those cards. So for example, here we have the last one was 40 and this one is 10%, I think, in the threshold.
Nice. So basically different animations for different elements that are creating this great effect.
Exactly. And I mentioned duplicate. So we had this card that was duplicated in order to create that one. And then the grid was duplicated that was holding those 2 cards in order to create this grid. And then it was duplicated again to create this grid. So basically, it was pretty easy to create some design that was very detailed, very fast. Also, when we review the different breakpoints, you can see that the design repeats itself. For example, here we are in the Y desktop. And here, when we go to the tablet, you can see again that the design repeats itself, but with some minor adjustments. So, for example, here we have a different padding between the 2 columns. Mm-hmm. So this one is 50, and when we had the Y desktop, it was wider. It was 100% gap. And when we'll go to the mobile, you can see that it has a single column, but the design of the card is the same. And just like the text, the title is a bit smaller to match the smaller screen, and some padding on the side. So the fact that we have here 5 breakpoints just mean that you can review them and just adjust for them. And DudaFlex does most of the heavy lifting for you. So you can create pixel perfect designs pretty fast.
That's really amazing. Can you show some additional examples?
Yeah, sure. So this was a creative agency template. Now let's go to a empty flex template that I've already added some pre-made sections to it. So one of the great capabilities that DudaFlex has is creating your own grid. So for example, this grid is made of 2 columns and 2 rows. We can also see it here in the layout menu. And this kind of layout was a bit difficult to create before. And now here you have like the same cards with the same elements, and just by dragging and snapping them differently, you can create a list that is more like playful. So that is one great thing.
Nice.
And after, yeah, it is actually pretty nice. And after you've already created your grid, you can edit it really fast. So let's take this one, for example, which is that has 6 columns. And 6 columns was also something that was difficult to achieve without custom code. But with DudaFlex, you can just add as much columns as you want, or rows, and control the space between them. And so here we have six columns, but with just a click of a button, I can change the layout of my grid to something else. For example, here I have 3 columns and 2 rows, or 2 columns and 3 rows, or go back to my initial design. And of course, I can achieve it by breakpoint. So I'll go here. So now I also have in the white desktop, I also have 6 columns, but the gap is wider. If I go to tablet, you can see that here I have a different layout that was also achieved with just a click of a button. When we go to mobile, we'll have 2 columns. And let's change it to a single column. And another great thing that you can do is to change the layout of each flexbox. So this card is made of 6 different flexboxes, that their layout is vertical. We can see it here in the layout when you're selecting your flexbox. And I'll just hit the horizontal, and I can change the layout of my card again in a click of a button.
And this change applies only like now to the mobile view, right?
Yes, exactly. So let's leave it as horizontal, and we'll go to the main breakpoint. And you can see that this card here is in vertical. So you can be very flexible when designing your grid or layout of any card.
It's great. So lots of flexibility between different breakpoints to achieve different design and to maximize the space.
Exactly. Another great capability that we have now is responsive size units. So for example, this grid was already made with 100% VH. When I'll go to the preview, so that means that I have a fuller screen height. So you can see that my grid is holding 100% of my screen height. So, but that can be done, of course, to any section. For if I'll select a different object, then you can see that in the size menu, let me select the width, for example, of the Flexbox. So you can see that it's with percentage, and I can change from percent to VH, VW, or auto, which is means that this width is controlled by the content, or of course pixels that we all know. For the last example, I want to show you duplicates. So for this kind of list, it's pretty obvious that duplicate was being used because each item here has the same objects. So let's say that there is another team member that joined. So I'll just add from the column, from customize layout, I'll add another column, and I'll select the main Flexbox here and just duplicate it. And then I'll just place it in and snap it to its column. So this was pretty easy but kind of obvious. But I want to show you how using duplicates can be used like as a shortcut for your creating more complex layout. So here we have this layout, and let's see how it was done. So we have this container with a background image, and that container is holding a Flexbox with 2 text blocks inside. So let me just delete this one. Okay, so I will duplicate this card, and now I'll drag it, and I want to snap it over 4 columns. Right. Yeah, and let me just stretch it over the entire grid height. And then I want just the Flexbox to have a more like interesting position. So I'll just drag it over to 2 columns, and that's it. Like with 2 clicks, I have a more interesting layout, and I use duplicates.
It's great, Maayan. Can you? We did some recording of how to build some of those sections, right? Can you show how to get to that?
Yeah, sure. So just hover over the add section to reveal the sections panel. And here we have the Flex section category. And all the sections that have a recording, for example, the one that I just showed, there is the watch tutorial. There is a short video for all of those, so you can learn how we did it.
So Maayan, I want to ask you one more thing. Do you think like DudaFlex is flexible enough to build like, real websites, like maybe some famous websites can be built with DudaFlex? Does it have like big limitations?
Yes, of course, you can design everything with DudaFlex. So let's take this MailChimp website. And MailChimp are very known as having very good UX design, and they are very trendy. They change their website design, I think, every 6 months. So we can see a lot of the holding trends here, like this brutalism style or the pastels. There are like illustrations. So this is really up to date. So here we did it with DudaFlex. So you can see that it's exactly the same website.
So what are we looking at, Maayan? This is like one of our designers just like rebuilt like the MailChimp homepage with DudaFlex?
Yes. In just a couple of hours, including bringing all the images and the the content. So it was really fast to create a very long page and responsive. So let's see how she did it. For example, let's take the first section. So it was made. Let me open the layers panel so we can see how it was made. So we have two grids. We have grid number 1 over here and grid number 2 over here. And the first grid has a background color and a vertical flex box with the title and the text. Grid number 2 over here, you can see that has a container with a background color. Inside, another container with a different background color. Holding those two images overlapping. And then there is a horizontal flex box over here, this. And inside of it, there are 4 duplicates of a vertical flex box with text blocks and an icon. That's it. And of course, looks good on every device.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
I think it really proves the point that, like, you know, with DudaFlex, you can build pixel perfect websites fast, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's great. So Maayan, thank you for all this inspiration. And now let's switch over to Adiel to learn a little bit more about the basics of DudaFlex and how to do things and how the system is working, so people can understand how to build those amazing designs. So hi Adiel, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. So, Maayan, you can stop presenting now. So, I will start my presentation in a moment. Okay, great.
While
So-
doing that, Adiel, let me start by asking you how is it like to be one of the lead developers on the DudaFlex product?
Oh, it was a really great experience. I enjoyed it very much. We had very interesting challenges, and it is great to see your feedback from the users.
How many unit tests did you add to DudaFlex?
Whoa, we have so much. We lost the count of how many.
Okay, great. So are you ready? I have a lot of questions for you, Adiel.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with the first object, maybe the main object in DudaFlex, which is the grid object. So
Yes.
maybe first you tell us a little bit how the layouting of grid is working and how to change layouts between breakpoints.
Yes, so here we have a section with a single grid. Here on the design panel, I can see that the grid has 4 columns and 1 row. I can also see it here. And we are currently in the desktop breakpoint. So let's go ahead and switch to tablet breakpoint. So here we can see that there is not enough spacing between my icons. So it might be better to change the design and layout of our grid. So let's go to the design panel and click on this button to change the layout to have 2 columns and 2 rows. So here it is, looks much better. Let's go ahead to mobile portrait breakpoint and see how it looks. Okay, automatically in mobile breakpoint, my grid has 1 column and 4 rows. So here I can see that it might be better to add padding also on the bottom of each cell. So our icons will be centered exactly on the center. So to increase the height of each row, we are going to increase the height of the grid. Okay, great. So now every icon is in the center of the cell it is inside.
So that's because every row is basically getting the proportional height of the entire grid, right?
Yes, so now each row has 400 pixels height since there are 4 rows, and we set the total height to be 1600 pixels.
Got it. Great. Okay. So, and what about deleting empty columns or empty rows within a grid? How do we do that?
Okay, so let's go to this section. We have here a grid, again with 4 columns and 1 row, and we have an element in the first and third cells, and the second and fourth are empty. So if we want to delete, for example, the 4th cell, we're going to right-click, open the context menu, and select Delete Empty Column. And it's gone. We can do the same for the second column and delete it as well. So here we have only the columns with elements inside.
So context menu is something that is also working on DudaFlex, right?
Yes, we have also some more actions inside the context menu, like add, duplicate. So go ahead and check it out.
Okay, great. So let's talk about placing elements in the grid. So right there are basically 2 options. You can either place widgets directly on the grid, like you did here in this example, or you can place them inside containers or flex boxes. So maybe you can tell when to switch each method.
Okay, that's a good question. So basically, when you want to place a single element, you can just place it freely on the grid wherever you want. But when you want to group multiple elements together, so you will have its design, it is better to use a container or flexbox. So for example, let's create a container inside this grid and place our icons, our elements inside, sorry. So here we have the elements grouped together, so we can move them around. We can also change the background of the container. And now we can also duplicate all the design and place it wherever we want.
Great. Next question. There is this functionality of which is called pin to edge. Yes. And when clicking on it, it doesn't look like nothing happens. So maybe you can tell us how it works.
Yes, so this one is tricky. So let's go ahead and take a look on an example. So here we have a red button placed on the grid, and we can see that it is pinned to the top right. If we will hover over this icon, we can see on the canvas that the element is docked to the top right. Let's go ahead and change it to be docked to the bottom right. Okay, great. And let's see the docking of this button. This button is docked to the top left. Okay, so now let's go and resize our grid. So it will have 500 pixels. Okay, so what happened here is that only the red button moved to the bottom. And the reason for that is because this button is attached to the bottom of the grid, while this one is attached to the top of the grid. So this is a useful option for depending on the use case that you want to achieve.
So great. So pin to edge is really used to make sure that elements are staying relatively to one of the edges, right? To the bottom, to the right, and so on.
Yes, so you can place it close to the edge that you want.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about the different size units that we added to DudaFlex. So Maayan showed it a little bit, but maybe let's discuss it further. How the percentage, VH, all of those are working.
Okay, so let's take a look. So here we have a button, and its width is set to 150 pixels. So pixels is the units we are all familiar with since it's a fixed value of pixels. We also have the percentage unit. A percentage unit is relatively to the element containing our element. So here in this example, the button is inside a cell. So if we change the width of the button to be 30%, then it takes 30% of the width of the cell it is inside. And if we're going to drag the button so it will span across two cells, its width is changed to 15%, since now its width is 15% from the width of the grid. Also, we have the VH and VW units, which are percentage of the viewport height or width. So we can use it to set units that is relative to the viewport, which is very useful, as Maayan showed in the section for setting a grid, for example, to 100 VH. We also have the auto unit, which is actually automatically set by the content. So this is, for example, how auto looks.
Great. So now that we learned, like, the pin to edge and the different size unit, let me ask you a more complicated question that many of the users are asking. They're asking why my design changes after I click done in flex mode and go to the standard editor.
Okay, this one is also tricky. So let's see an example of this scenario. So I'm going to place the first icon here and the red button next to it. Okay, great. Now I'm going to exit the flex mode by hitting the done button. Okay, so now our buttons are no longer next to each other. And the reason for that is that in the standard mode of the editor, the grid is bigger since we don't have the right panel here. And since our elements are positioned relatively to the grid, then the spacing is changing when the grid gets bigger. So to fix this problem, we have two options. We can either put our elements inside the container. So let's see how it is done. And we will change the width of the container to be fixed width, so it won't change. And now we will exit the flex mode. We can see that the button stayed wherever we expected them. That's because now they are related to the container, and the container has fixed side of width. Another way to solve this problem will be to select the grid and in the right panel to turn off the full bleed. So when we will turn off the full bleed, our grid is limited to 1200 pixels. So it doesn't matter in which breakpoint we are in, it won't be stretched more than 1200 pixels. So when we will exit the flex mode, the elements will stay also in place.
Great. I think this is like really important to learn. Once you master that, you can really design freely in DudaFlex. Once you understand how to make sure that the elements are designed in the way that you want, relatively to the grid or relatively to themselves and so on.
Yes.
Cool. So now let's talk a little bit about Flexbox. Maybe first let's try to understand. We have Flexbox and we have containers. So what's the difference between the two, and when we should use each?
So this is a good question. So basically, a container is a way to group elements together, and you can still place them freely wherever you want, and you can also overlap element one over the other. In contrast, Flexbox is controlling the layout of the elements inside it, and we can't overlap elements. So let's drop the red button inside the Flexbox. And now, since we selected to create a vertical Flexbox, when I will drop the second button inside, it will change the position of the first element. So it is good to use also the container and the Flexbox. It depends on the use case that you want to use.
So can I summarize that container is like freestyle design within a box, and Flexbox is like really automatic layouting, either vertical or horizontal, right?
Yes.
So today, like the current Duda is more similar to a vertical Flexbox, right? The current columns in standard Duda.
Yes, the standard Duda mode, it's like having a grid with 2, 3, or 4 columns with vertical flexbox in each column.
But here with Flexbox, we have also something new that we don't have in standard Duda, which is all the alignment options, right? Can you go us through that?
Yes. So here we have a vertical flexbox. We can also change the direction to horizontal. And we can also change the alignment of the elements inside the flexbox. We can change the vertical alignment to be top, middle, or bottom. And we can change it to have space between, which means that, let's duplicate for a moment this button. It means that now the spacing between all the elements is the same space. And when we can also select space around, which means that each children of the flexbox is now has equal width before that element and after that element. So it doesn't matter the total height and width of the flexbox, it will dynamically adjust it itself. So let's try to resize the flexbox, and you can see that the space between the elements is changing automatically. We can also change the horizontal alignment to the left, center, and right. And we can also change the direction of the flexbox to be horizontal. So now all the icons are one of the other horizontally. As you can see, the width of each button got reduced. And the reason for that is there is not enough space, since the flexbox has the width of, let's say, 300 pixels. So for this case, we have the wrapping options. Let me show you how it works. When we select the wrap option, when there is not enough space in the flexbox, the elements will start to wrap to new lines, so the size will still be the same. So let's reduce the size of the flexbox. So once we don't have enough place, the button is wrapped to new lines, and the same for the second button. So this is useful for cases that you want to control the lines of the elements inside horizontal flexbox. We only have these options in horizontal flexbox.
Great. So horizontal flexbox is a great use case for custom social icons, for example, right?
Yeah, that could be a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. So let's understand a little bit more the different breakpoints in DudaFlex. Or maybe before that, one more question. Sorry, Adiel. If I want to space manually between elements in a flexbox, for example, in the design that you have now with the buttons, let's say that I want to have some spacing between the first and second button. How can I do that?
Okay, so let's see. If we want to change the spacing of just a single element, we can select it and set margin to it. For example, 10 pixels. We can also do it by hitting Shift and arrow up or down to increase or decrease the margin of the element inside the flexbox. So now there is space only between the first and the second element inside the flexbox.
Okay, great. So this is like all still like possible, but just like you need to use some other controls.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about like the different breakpoints. So we have like 5 breakpoints, right?
Yes.
So maybe first, like, explain a little bit about each and how inheritance between like those breakpoints work.
Yes, so when we hover the breakpoints, we can see to which pixel range they're applying to. So our main breakpoint is the desktop. We should start designing for the desktop first, since its style will be automatically inherited to all the other breakpoints. Mobile portrait breakpoint also inherits its style to the mobile landscape breakpoint. So this is for styles that related to layout, alignment, position, size, and spacing. But for changes that are related to adding or removing and changing the structure of the platform, then it will apply to all the breakpoints. So, for example, let's take this button and place it over here. As we can see, it is also placed in Y desktop and tablet. And if we will change the position of the button to be here, it will only apply to this breakpoint. And in Y desktop and desktop, it is still the same. But if we are going to go to tablet and delete this button, we will have this notification that alerts us that we may have made an unintentional action, since this will affect all breakpoints, and we can undo it. So when we switch to Y desktop and desktop, we no longer have this button, since this was a structure change, and this change affects all breakpoints.
Got it. And you can rely on our notifications to know when you did it. Maybe it was a mistake.
Yes, you don't need to remember all the scenarios. You will have notification telling you when you made an action that affects all the breakpoints.
Okay, so what is kind of like the recommended workflow to work with DudaFlex? Do you need to edit all 5 breakpoints, or how does that work?
Okay, so the best way to work is to start with design for desktop. And since we have the inheritance mechanism of the styles, your design will look good automatically on Y desktop and tablet. And all you need to do is go to mobile and make some adjustment to it.
And if you want, of course, you can then make some additional changes to tablet or Y desktop, right?
Yes, but basically it will look pretty much as expected, and you won't need to make a lot of adjustments.
Okay, that's important, because we heard some questions of users that are asking, so what do I need now to design for 5 different sizes? So basically, no, you can just make some adjustments if you want to, but you don't have to.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about the layers panel. Maayan showed it, but let's understand how it works. So what is the layers panel?
Yes, so in the layers panel, we can see all the elements we have and the tree of elements. Here we have a section, within it we have a grid, a flex box with 2 buttons, and a container. We can also use it to select elements. For example, if we have here 2 elements, one above the other, and we want to select the red button. So we can go to the layers panel and click on the red button, and now we can, for example, change its width to be bigger, and we can see it and make changes to it.
And we can also change the order, right?
Yes, we can also change the order of the buttons by bringing it to front here, or by using the shortcut of Command and square brackets, just as the same in Sketch.
That's great. We added a lot of keyboard shortcuts to DudaFlex.
Yes, you can also duplicate an element by hitting Command and D. A very useful one.
And also, the layers panel, right? It's also a very good way to understand the structure, right? And of a pre-made section. So if you want to understand what's going on, right, that's one of the easier way to analyze.
Yes, you can see how we made our sections by going to the layers panel and see all the elements and which element is inside another element.
Okay, great. And one more question to this area. How do you hide some elements for a specific breakpoint?
Yes, so we can use the layers panel to hover over an element and click on the eye icon. And once we click it, it will not be visible for this breakpoint. So let's switch to Y desktop or tablet. Here we can see the element, but in desktop, we don't see it since we have hidden it with the eye icon. We can make it visible again by clicking the eye icon again. So this is a great use case and very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Next question that I have for you, Adiel, is can we save like a flex section and reuse it again and again, either on the same site or in different sites? How do you do that?
Yes, so once you have designed your flex section, you can reuse it wherever you want, either on the same page or in another page or another site. You go out on flex mode and click on this label and select Save as Section. So let's give it the name of Flex1 and save it. Okay, great. Now we can go, for example, to About page. And here we're going to click Add Section. And we will scroll down, and here it is, our Flex section we have just built. Let's click on it and save it. Great. So here is our section in another page.
That's great. So we basically extended our sections technology for flex section as well, and this is a great way to reuse. Another question that many people are asking about copying and pasting elements between different different grids, or dragging and dropping between different grids. So we don't have this functionality, but we do have a good workaround for it, right?
Yes. So right now, let's say we have another grid over here, and you want to place this button in the second grid. So we can use the layer panel for this to drag and drop our button to the second grid, and we can move it and change it. So here I mistakenly selected the container and move it to the second grid.
Okay, that's great. So we can use the layers panel to move things between grids.
Yes.
Very useful. Another question that customers are asking, what about custom code? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Can we do it with Flex?
Yes, so JavaScript is the same. And for widget, you can still select a widget and go to here or through the context menu and edit HTML, CSS. And here you can change the HTML, CSS of the widgets just as you could before. So regarding flex elements, such as the grid, the container, or the flexbox, that is not possible right now to change its HTML, since we now use a model to render all the elements. But you can still target the selectors by their IDs of the elements and change it in the dev mode. But basically, you won't need to do that, since you can achieve a lot of complexity with the current design of the CSS grid and flexbox. So it is not a common use case.
Great. But like we can still, right, you can still use HTML widgets and all of that, custom widgets inside Flex mode. So you have all the flexibility to do that when you need it.
Yes, you have all the widgets that you had also in Flex mode.
So to summarize it, we think that, like, for layouting, we don't expect you to write code for it. The layouting, that the Flex system should take care of it. But if you want like custom functionality for some widgets and so on, you can still use code.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have last question for you, Adiel. So, we hear from different customers that know standard Duda very well, and they want to try DudaFlex, but they're a little bit afraid, and they want to start with something, let's say, that is more similar and familiar to the standard Duda. Do we have some best practice to recommend for it?
Yes, so the best practice for this type of users is to create a new grid. In this empty grid, we will change it to have like 4 columns and a single row. And we're going to add a vertical flexbox and place it to be stretched over the first cell. And now we are going to duplicate this flexbox and place the second one in the next cell. We're going to duplicate it again with the shortcut of Command D and place each flexbox in each cell. So now we have a design that is similar to the standard mode of the editor. We have a grid with 4 columns, and in each column we have a vertical Flexbox, and you can start and design just the way you knew. Plus, you can also use the capabilities of the Flex mode.
So, for example, you can now nest additional flex boxes inside, for example, horizontal ones if you need, right?
Yes, for example, we can add an horizontal flex box inside of the vertical one.
By the way, is it like possible to mix containers inside flex boxes inside containers?
Yes, you have no limit for that. You can nest Flexbox inside a Flexbox or container, and also vice versa. You can nest a container inside a vertical or horizontal Flexbox.
Yeah, that's great. And you can like create like this type of kind of like standard Duda style grid, and then you can save it as a section and then start from it every time you want, right?
Yes, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So you can reuse it and start your design with a design you are familiar with.
That's great. Thanks, Adiel. So cool. So lots of questions, Adiel. Thanks for all the information. And now I think let's go back to Maayan.
Okay, so I've stopped the presentation, and you can share again, Maayan.
Thank you, Adiel.
Cool. So Maayan, so let's talk a little bit about like, our plans for the future with DudaFlex.
Yes.
So what are we planning for the short term?
Yeah, so our short-term roadmap is to add, of course, more pre-made sections for everyone to be inspired or learn or use for their sites. We also want to be able that store and blog will be supported in Flex mode. We want to enable copy-paste functionality that we know is super useful, and to add more animation effects to both DudaFlex and to the standard editor.
Great. And what about like, longer term plans?
So we will simplify the experience in Flex mode, and everything, of course, is based on users' feedback. We will add the ability to have a more smoother transition between multiple sections and in a Flex-only template. And we will connect flex boxes and containers to collections. So it will be like a much more faster work with creating like custom lists or galleries.
That would be amazing. So basically, we'll be able to use all the design flexibility of DudaFlex with the dynamic of collections and and effectiveness of collections.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that would be great. By the way, Maayan, today, if you use DudaFlex inside like dynamic pages, is it working?
Yes, it is. You can add any flex section to a dynamic page, and all the connected data that you have is working with DudaFlex in all the widgets.
Okay, great, cool. And so, how do we get feedback from users to influence the roadmap?
So there is the send feedback button in the Flex mode. In the top bar in the center, you can't miss it. You can send any suggestion or comment or ask a question or report an issue. This is actually how we are receiving it. And there is also the Duda idea board. And if you're not familiar with it, you can just simply go to your dashboard and hit the resource tab in the top for the Duda idea board, where you can submit any new idea or follow an existing idea that you already added. And any feedback that you upload in this way or the other is helping us to build DudaFlex so it will better fit your needs. So please send us your feedback.
Yeah, use this like huge feedback button in Flex mode. Tell us what you think. If you like it, if you don't, bugs, suggestions, it will really help us out. Great. So let's move to Q&A. We have here, I see like a very long list of questions. So let's take them one by one, and hopefully we can answer all of those. Okay, so first question, why I don't see Flex in my account? Maayan, maybe you can answer.
So yeah, first it might be because you are a team member and your administrator did not check Flexbox for you, or it could be because you're in trial. We are gradually releasing DudaFlex to our new users. So if you don't have it yet, you will have it very soon.
Okay, good. Will you continue to support non-Flex sites after the beta is over? So yeah, as I said before, yes, absolutely. We'll always support, like, the Duda websites that you have today. We do plan to put more emphasis on Flex, also make it, like, easier to use, and hopefully that will create a lot of, like, Flex websites, but we will continue to support non-Flex sites for sure. Then another question, what about white label for support materials?
So yes, the team is working on it, and we will enable it for your customers.
Okay. Can you convert regular sections to Flex sections? So today it's not possible to automatically convert. You will need to rebuild them. Once we're going to have, like, copy paste, it will be easier to do that. We understand that this will be great to have, like, a button to migrate. We really want to do it. It is in a roadmap, not in the very short coming, but it is in a roadmap. But we'll get there eventually. But we love those questions because it means that, like, you see the value and want to move existing design to Flex. Next one, how can I drag and drop between Flex sections or copy from the editor to Flex mode? Adiel, do you want to answer that?
Yes. So you can drag between grids from the panel, as we saw before. And hopefully soon you will also be able to copy and paste elements between the Flex section or from the standard mode of the editor to the Flex mode. It is definitely on our roadmap.
Okay, great. Then will DudaFlex affect the site speed? So the answer is no. DudaFlex is not affecting negatively, like, site speed. We are investing tons in Duda to make sure that the sites are as fast as possible, optimized to Lighthouse and to Core Web Vitals. We made sure when we architected DudaFlex that it is optimized as well. Like things like how many containers or Flexboxes you are using and so on, and not affecting, like, site speed. What could affect more is, like, large videos or stuff like that. But in general, DudaFlex sites should perform, like, really, really well on all those tests. Next question, is it working with connected data? So yes, so Maayan answered that a little bit. Working with connected data, all the widgets inside Flex mode can be connected to data, photo galleries, buttons, text, all of those custom widgets that were built in the widget builder. What's still not available is connecting Flexbox or containers or grid to background images. We'll work on that, and we'll also work on creating what we call Flex collections. Can we have full Flex page so we can edit without entering Flex mode? Maayan.
So currently you can create your own Flex page with just using the Flex sections, add more Flex sections as we saw in the template. And we will work on the possibility to have a smoother transition between them. But currently it's one section at a time.
Okay. Can I prevent staff and clients from creating or editing Flex sections?
Yes. So the default of add Flex permission for both team members and clients is off. If you want to, maybe I can just quickly show it. You can also, in the standard Duda editor, just hit the Flex section label and lock for client editing. This is another possibility.
Okay, that's very useful. Next question. Can I add flex section on previous Duda sites? So yes, absolutely, you can do it to existing sites, to new sites, for sure. Will Flex replace the old editor in time? Please say yes. As we discussed, we are going to evolve DudaFlex to have like full Flex templates without needing to use the old editor. But the old editor is not going anywhere. We'll continue to support it for sure. It's not in maintenance mode or anything like that. Can we build custom widgets for DudaFlex? Yes, the widget builder and the custom widgets will work in DudaFlex just as they work in standard Duda. No changes to it, absolutely. Are there plans to allow applying a link to a container? So we heard that a lot. We understand the importance of that. So you can have the entire container clickable. And this is like in a roadmap. We hope to complete that like soon. Will there be custom breakpoints or only the 5 existing ones? Maayan.
It's a great idea, and we'll definitely consider that. But now you can just the breakpoints that we have cover a lot of the breakpoints that are popular.
Yeah, we thought that like maybe 5 is like, really like good enough, and we'll see if like it's really needed like to add like additional breakpoints. Okay, can the page header be designed in Flex? So the page header can be designed in Flex. The only limitation is today that like shrinking header doesn't really shrink if the header is in Flex. So if you don't need shrinking header, go ahead and like, use a Flex header. If you do need a shrinking header, you need to wait for us to support it. Also, like, import it on our roadmap. What about the use in dynamic pages and data? We answered that, fully supported. We have more plans for it in the future. Is Flex compatible with e-com stores, Maayan?
So currently you can add any Flex section to a store page, but you can't edit the store items from Flex mode, but you will be very soon.
Okay, next question. Will you set an endpoint to archive the old editor so everyone can work towards DudaFlex? Again, we answered that. We're going to continue to build Flex, but support DudaFlex editor for now. Can you put a Flexbox in a container and vice versa? Absolutely. You can nest as many levels as you want. We also showed it quite a lot, like in the demos. Is there a DudaU course for that?
So yes, definitely. Maybe I can show it real quickly. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of education materials. So first, when you go into Flex mode, we have the Learn panel. And the Learn panel has this build a section step-by-step tutorial. Each step here has both a video and the steps how to reproduce. There is also a link to all the support articles, a link to Duda University, and if you need to be reminded with the tour of the interface. And there is a whole category of DudaFlex in DudaU. So here is the first card here is the DudaFlex course, and after we have short videos of like setting permissions and what is the difference between a container and a Flexbox, and then how to create sections. So you have all the support you need in order to be a DudaFlex Pro.
It's great, and this is really like the best way if you want to learn DudaFlex. Take an hour, do those tutorials. It will really like make you familiar like with the system. Okay, next is can we can we hide grids, containers, and flex for specific devices? So yes, and Adiel showed it, how we hide from breakpoint using the layers panel. You can also hide the entire flex section by device using the standard hide on device functionality. Can we create classes for styling elements? How does that work with flex containers grids? So today, no, we don't have it yet, like this functionality. We know that this is a great idea. We don't have it today. How does DudaFlex handle load speed? We answered that already. As fast as standard Duda. How does Flex new organizational elements, grids, containers, and Flex buses affect website performance in terms of core web vitals? Does overlapping elements slow down the loading speed of a website? So we answered that as well. No, doesn't slow it down. Obviously, if you're going to have like too many images above the fold, it will slow down, but that's everywhere. When will it come out of beta? Good question. Maayan, what do you think about it?
So it really depends on us and the feedback that we're going to get. Currently, it's production ready. All the assets that you're going to create in DudaFlex, whether it's a section or a whole site. But it's really a matter of the features that we're going to think it's ready for stopping the beta.
Okay, yeah. So it's in beta, but I have to say that it is beta, but like once you publish a site, it's production ready. So you can definitely go ahead and like build websites, and we'll take it out of beta when we think that the scope is big enough and you're all happy. Okay, how does the import and export website options would work on Flex? So the export site mechanism in Duda is exporting the end result of a site, the HTML, the end HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It will work with DudaFlex the same way as it is working today. Is the goal to make the entire editor DudaFlex? If not, is the thought about adding layers to the regular editor? So we talked about it. We definitely want to make like templates, Flex-only templates soon. Can you move already created sections into a Flex section? No, today that is not possible. So we can make sites for our clients, or should we wait until Flex is out of beta? Absolutely, go ahead, create sites for your clients. We are committed for the quality of those sites. Once the site is published, it's production ready, and go ahead. This is definitely what we want you to do. Will global styling be added to Duda, as in creating classes outside of custom CSS on each element? Great idea. We don't have it today. We'll get there eventually. Will collections work within Flex? Yes, collections are working within Flex. We have, as we said, bigger plans for that. Are all the standard widgets able to be added into a Flex sections? Yes, all the standard widgets, also any custom widget that was built in the widget builder. Does Flex Editor will work on the mobile app on Duda Go? I think editing a Flex section today that is not supported in Duda Go, but it can be viewed on Duda Go. Is there a shortcut key for adding a Flex grid section? Adiel, do we have it?
Not yet, but you can use the duplicate to duplicate an existing element.
And we have a lot of other shortcut keys, right?
Yes, as we already mentioned, you can change the order by hitting command and square brackets, or change the position with command and the arrow keys, and much more.
Okay, great. Deleting an element with a delete key, duplicating with command D, right? We have lots of shortcuts.
Yes.
Great. Are there any browsers that don't support Flex properly? No, we support DudaFlex is supported on the browser, on all the browsers that Duda is supporting: Chrome, Firefox, Safari. I think best performance today is on Chrome, with most of the internet, but absolutely Safari and Firefox are working well. And how will this affect SEO, alt tags? No negative effect on SEO. DudaFlex site should get like the same great SEO that you can get on any Duda websites. No changes there. So yeah, I think this was the last question. Thank you for all submitting all those like many questions. We really appreciate that, and thank you for listening to this webinar. Maayan and Adiel, thanks for doing that with me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That was a pleasure.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And as we finish any presentation in Duda, with let's do this. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.